Hey everybody, I'm Tim Mooney. I am back with Shakespeare's Dirty Jokes. This time around, Act 2, Scene 4 of Twelfth Night. I just spent the summer bringing my latest one-man show, Breakneck Twelfth Night, to a bunch of festivals, picking up some terrific reviews, and the number of dirty jokes and confused sexual situations Shakespeare snuck into like every scene inspired me to do this series. And while the last scene we covered, Act 2, Scene 3, had a torrent of dirty jokes throughout, we find that in Act 2, Scene 4, the thread of humor takes a much more subtle turn, dwelling on jokes that are less dirty per se, but which are very much entrenched in gender and irony, mostly stemming from the fact that Viola is masquerading as a man under the name Cesario. In the very first scene of this play, we learned that Viola was going to pass herself off as a man, probably because an unchaperoned woman would likely be subject to ill treatment or scandal. And having done so, we learned when we got to Scene 4 that working in Duke Orsino's court, she immediately fell in love with him, even as he relied on Cesario to become his intermediary in his courtship of the Countess Olivia. She was, of course, successful in getting in to talk to Olivia, but entirely unsuccessful in winning her over to Duke Orsino, mostly because Olivia fell in love with Viola, or Cesario, in the process. So here, in Act 2, living in the body of a woman, trapped in the guise of a man, Viola dances right up to the edge of revealing her secret. Orsino, who seems strangely attracted to Cesario already, asks Cesario to think of him if ever thou shalt love. In that moment, some startled response from Viola seems to signal to Orsino that she has indeed fallen in love. Orsino cannot help but ask about it, and with each answer, Viola manages to tell the truth without giving away the fact that she is a woman and the man she loves is Duke Orsino. When Orsino asks, "What kind of woman is it?" she responds, "Of your complexion." Next, he asks, "Of what years, i'faith?" "About your years, my lord." Again, we can see just how near she is to saying, "You're the one," without actually saying it, always by acknowledging gender-neutral qualities in her love. Ironically, Orsino scolds her, insisting that the woman Cesario loves should take an elder man than herself, not knowing that Viola, a youthful woman, is wishing that she could do exactly that. Orsino does fall into a bit of sexism in the process by comparing women to roses whose flower, once revealed, immediately starts to fade. Fortunately, they are interrupted by Feste, who sings a song that Orsino describes as being about the innocence of love. In point of fact, the song has almost nothing to do with the innocence of love, and more to do with an anticipated death that will separate two lovers. But Orsino is so obsessed with love throughout, he seems to see everything through that narrow window. When Orsino tips Feste for thy pains, Feste assures him that singing is for him no pain at all. Orsino corrects himself to say, "I pay thy pleasure then." And Feste cannot help but remark, "And pleasure will be paid one time or another." This is another dirty joke, though it can be taken many ways. If the pleasure Feste refers to is indeed sexual, then there are at least 3 or 4 types of payment that might be required. 1, responsibility for any pregnancy. 2, a forced marriage should some violation be discovered. Or 3, the contraction of a disease. Come to think of it, there is a 4th option, should the woman be a paid companion. Of course, there are other pleasures for which this axiom would be every bit as true. The pleasure of overeating might result in a stomachache, or drinking too much might lead to a hangover. But those don't seem to keep step with the themes at work here between Viola and Orsino. Orsino gets back to business. Viola must return to yon same sovereign cruelty, that is, Olivia, to resume the seduction on behalf of her master, a wooing that Viola now knows has led Olivia to fall in love with her. And when Viola suggests that perhaps Olivia cannot love him, Orsino resumes his royal arrogance with, "I cannot be so answered." Viola then proceeds to thread a very narrow needle, arguing on behalf of some woman who, like Orsino, is in love with and rejected by him. Must she not then be answered? Somehow Viola has framed this as an abstract moral argument when we all know she is speaking of herself. Still, the arrogant man, Orsino, insists that there is no woman can bide so strong a passion, leaving perhaps everyone in the theater ready to shout out, yes there is, and she's standing right in front of you. And Viola does everything but shout that fact out loud. She takes Orsino on a convoluted description of her father's daughter who loved a man. Note that she cannot say, my sister, as that would be a lie, but her father's daughter is an accurate description of herself. And when Orsino asks if her sister died of her love, Viola dives into an even more convoluted gender riddle. I am all the daughters of my father's house, and all the brothers too, yet I know not. Many of us probably sit up to note that here, finally, Viola is expressing an outright lie. Obviously, she is all of the daughters of her father's house, assuming that she didn't have any sister. But all the brothers too? She has a brother, and that brother is not her. But that lie would only be a lie if she knew her brother were still alive. As far as she knows, her brother died in the shipwreck, and she is the only sibling left. And yet, just what is Orsino supposed to make of this? However we slice it, there is only one way this statement might make sense to Orsino, assuming he somehow manages to not see the truth of Viola's actual gender. If she is indeed all the daughters of her father's house and all the brothers too, the only rational explanation is that her supposed sister, who had loved a man, did indeed die, but that Cesario had no idea what it was that killed her. It's a twisted bit of logic which forces Orsino to jump past several assumptions before coming back to what should otherwise have been a very simple, though very false statement. My sister died, and I don't know if it was from love or something else. Again, we find that the irony is running incredibly thick in this scene. We, the audience, love to be on the inside of the joke, seeing all those on the outside coming right up against the discovery of the truth that we already know and dismissing it without putting that last logical puzzle piece in place. The pleasure of knowing the inside joke when somebody on stage does not is what we call dramatic irony. And so, with all of that in mind, here's Act 2, Scene 4 of Breakneck Twelfth Night. Scene 4, Orsino's palace. Enter Orsino and Viola. Come hither, boy. If ever thou dost love, in the sweet pangs of it, remember me. Thine eye hath stayed upon some favor that it loves, hath it not, boy? A little by your favor. What kind of woman is it? Of your complexion. She is not worthy, then, of what years, i' faith? About your years, my lord. Too old, by heaven. Let the woman take an elder to herself. For women are as roses, whose fair flower, being once displayed, doth fade that very hour. Enter Feste. Oh, fellow, come, the song we had last night. Mark it, Cesario, it dallies with the innocence of love. Prithee, sing. Come away, death, and in sad cypress let me be laid. Fly away, breath, I am slain by a fair cruel maid. Me shroud of white stuck all with you, oh prepare it. Me part of death no one so true did share it. Not a flower, sweet, on me black coffin let there be strown. Not a friend, greet my poor corpse where me bones shall be thrown. 1,000 sighs to save, lay me aware. Sad true lover, never find my grave to weep there. There's for thy pains. No pains, sir. I take pleasure in singing, sir. I pay thy pleasure then. Truly, sir, and pleasure will be paid one time or another. Once more, Cesario, get thee to yon same sovereign cruelty. But if she cannot love you, sir, I cannot be so answered. Say some woman hath for your love so strong a heart as you have for Olivia. You cannot love her, you tell her so. Must she not then be answered? There is no woman can bide so strong a passion. My father had a daughter, loved a man, as perchance were I a woman, I should your lordship. What's her story? A blank, my lord. She never told her love, but with a green and yellow melancholy she sat like patience on a monument, smiling at grief. But died your sister of her love, my boy? I am all the daughters of my father's house, and all the brothers too, and yet I know not. So that's Act 2, Scene 4 of Breakneck Twelfth Night. Next week, we push on to one of Shakespeare's greatest monologues with Malvolio's amazing letter scene. Once again, I'm Tim Mooney with the Timothy Mooney Repertory Theater, and I bring these breakneck shows to theaters around the United States. I would love to come and perform for you and your school or group. You can also find my work online at timmooneyRep.com with video versions at breakneckshakespeare.com. Finally, if you see the value of getting students interested in Shakespeare via a heightened awareness of the naughty parts, you can support our many explainer videos and our performance tours at patreon.com/timmooneyRep. See you on the stage.